Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday morning again. It's a beautiful sunny day. Can you hear the birds chirping? We're sitting on the edge of the woods again, pretending like we're at Dimwood Forest. The title of our chapter is Home Again. But if you'll remember things that happened yesterday, or actually it was Friday, Mr. Ocax did not give permission for the mice to move. And do you remember why? He told his dad it was because of Poppy. And as they were walking away, Poppy had something clenched in her hand. And it was the earring that he was wearing. And if you look at the front cover of the book, Poppy is currently wearing the earrings. So she must hang on to it to remember Ragweed. Chapter 7, Home Again. Poppy and her father did not talk on the long way home. Only occasionally did she say, "Watch the puddle, Papa, or it won't be long now." That was all. Longworth, walking with his head down, eyes glued to his feet, kept uttering sighs. Now and then he reached up to touch his hat, just to be sure it was there. Once, after stealing a look at Poppy, a look that she caught, he'd let out something like a moan. Poppy was fearful of asking her father the questions she kept asking herself. If Mr. Ocax refused permission for the move, and he had, and if there was not enough food, and her father said this was true, what was the family to do? Would some of them have to forage in distant places, in the open? That meant they'd be at the mercy of Mr. Ocax, a complete calamity. Poppy peeked again at Ragweed's earring. She kept asking herself why she had never gone to the hill with Ragweed without asking permission. She knew better. Look at all the trouble she'd caused. Just then she hated herself for having loved Ragweed. But just to think that thought made her heart ache. Rain was still falling when they reached Gray House. Both mice were soaked and exhausted. The once white flag trailed in the mud. A large number of mice were milling about on the porch, waiting for the expected good news. Sure enough, when Poppy and Lungwort appeared, a cheer went up. The sound brought Lungwort to a dead halt. The old mouse stared blankly at the row of eager faces. A second cheer began but faded as the onlookers sensed something was wrong. Silent and grim-faced, eyes averted, Lungwort painfully climbed the gray house steps. Alarmed into silence, the mice backed away to let him pass. Poppy saw her mother break through the crowd. "Lungwort," she cried, "oh my dear, what happened?" Lungwort lifted sad eyes. Without a word, he continued on into the house, retreating into his boot study and drawing the curtain behind him. For a moment, sweet Cecilie started after her husband. Then she dashed into the boot after him. Only then did the others notice Poppy. She had been standing alone, quite ignored. Now they surrounded her and pelted her with questions. What happened? Is something the matter? What's with Lungwort? What did Mr. Okax say? By the way, that is my dog, Maggie, looking for squirrels and chipmunks in the yard. Poppy, not sure how to reply, remained silent. Finally, she held up a paw, her father's gesture. The mice responded as they always did. They grew quiet. Swallowing hard, Poppy said, Mr. Okax refused permission for anyone to move. Like air escaping from a balloon, there was a collective gasp from the crowd, but a torrent of questions followed. What did Mr. Okax say? Didn't Lungwort explain? What are we supposed to do now? Did the owl give any reason? Poppy lifted a paw again. Once the crowd had stilled, she confessed softly. Mr. Okax said it was because Ragweed and I didn't get permission to go to Bannock Hill. She hoped for a chorus, or at least one mouse who would say, "That's not fair," or "That's absurd." No such word was spoken. Alarmed, Poppy looked around. Some eyes avoided her. Others showed sorrow. Quite a few darted angry glares at her. "You'll have to excuse me now," she murmured, quite shaken. "I need to get myself dry." A narrow passage was made for her to pass. As she entered the house, she left a nudge from behind. Alarmed, she jumped. It was Basil. "This way," he whispered. He led her to an isolated room. "Dry yourself," he said. "I'll get you something hot." Placing Ragweed's earring to one side, Poppy began licking her fur dry. By the time she was done, Basil returned with an acorn of steaming mashed rye. Despite her upset, Poppy ate ravenously, grateful for the warmth that seeped through her body. Basil listened intently as Poppy told of the meeting with Mr. Okax. "And look what I found." She held up Ragweed's earring. Basil took it carefully. Where was it? Sticking out of one of Mr. Okax's pellets. "Makes me sick," he muttered. After a while, he asked, "Poppy, what's going to happen next?" Poppy sighed. "I thought it would have been possible to feel worse than I did when Ragweed died. I was wrong. This is worse. So many will suffer. And guess who's being blamed? Me." Wearily, Poppy made her way to the attic. She wanted to be alone. Amid Farmer Lamont's clutter, she'd come across a tin can a while ago, shaped like a house. "Log Cabin Syrup," the label read. After cleaning the inside to a shiny newness and lining it with her favorite old magazine bits, Poppy considered it her own room. Now she patted down a wad of filmy lace, her pillow, and crept beneath a blanket, a crocheted doily. Curled up into a tight ball, she tucked in her paws and wrapped her tail about her, tucking its tip right below her nose. Never had she felt so worn out. Even so, she could not sleep. She kept hearing Mr. Okax say that he was refusing permission for family members to move because she and Ragweed, had not asked him if they could go to Bannock Hill. Then, too, there was his hint that he would change his mind if she sacrificed herself. She was glad she had not mentioned that to the family, rather suspecting some of them would have urged her to do it. The mere hint of such a thing gave Poppy the horrors. She drew herself into a tighter ball. Harder to deal with was her own inner voice. It kept insisting that if what she and Ragweed had done was the reason for keeping others from moving and being safe, maybe she should sacrifice herself. A tear trickled down her face, rolled to the end of a whisker, and dropped into her pillow. Oh, she thought, if only Ragweed was here, he would have something to say. But what? She asked, trying to cheer herself up. Most likely a question. A backward one, just like the time he asked Lungwort how Mr. Oakax could confuse huge porcupines with small deer mice. Even as she thought about Ragweed's asking, Poppy realized that her father never did give an answer. She wondered why. Poppy forced herself back to the problem. Mr. Oakax said he was refusing permission because something she and Ragweed had done. How would Ragweed have turned that around? Poppy could almost hear it. Ragweed would have said, "What did refusing permission allow Mr. Oakax to do?" Just asking herself the question, because it lifted some of the burden from her, gave Poppy a touch of encouragement. Well, then, what did refusing permission allow Mr. Oakax to do? Poppy tried to remember exactly what occurred when her father finally came to his point and requested permission for the move. Slowly but clearly, it came back. When Lungwort asked the question, Mr. Oakax became flustered. He seemed unsure about something connected with Newhouse. That is, he didn't ask Lungwort about the move. He asked if he had been to Newhouse. In fact, he actually asked the question twice, or was it 3 times? The point was, the moment Lungwort said he had not been to Newhouse was when Mr. Oakax said no. But it was not, Poppy recalled, "No, you can't move." Rather, it was, "No, you cannot move to Newhouse." Well then, what did refusing permission allow Mr. Oakax to do? It allowed him to keep the mice away from Newhouse. Poppy sat up. Was it possible that there was something there at Newhouse that Mr. Oakax wanted to keep hidden from them? Was that the real reason for his refusal? The idea so excited Poppy that she felt like rushing downstairs to tell Lungwort. She started to get up, only to stop. If she had hit upon the real reason for Mr. Oakax's refusal, there was but one way she could prove it. She would have to go to Newhouse and see what was there. And she could hardly ask Mr. Oakax permission to do that. "I don't care," Poppy said aloud. making a fist of a paw. I'll do it. I will. With a sigh of exhaustion, Poppy finally fell asleep. But it was not a restful sleep. She kept dreaming she was lost. Worse, no matter where she turned for help, she only saw eyes. Mr. Okak's eyes. They were always just above and behind her. I wonder what's at Newhouse. Are they going to find some reason why Mr. Okax is trying to keep the mice away? Maybe. Chapter 8, Poppy and Papa. From the moment Lugwort pulled the curtains across the entrance to his boot study, he did not show himself. When inquiries were made, the curtain was opened by sweet Cecilia, but merely a fraction, looking out just long enough to say, "He's not well." She would draw the curtain closed. Now Poppy stood before the study, working up the courage to speak to him. She kept asking herself, as she'd already done 100 times, if she really wanted to go to Newhouse. The answer, plain and simple, was no. Just the thought frightened her. But still, she was convinced it was the only way to prove that she and Ragweed were not really the cause of Mr. Okak's refusal. Nonetheless, she feared that when she told her father about her intention, he would be displeased. With a sigh, she braced herself and called, "Papa." Her mother peeked out from behind the curtains. "He's not." "Oh, Poppy, it's you." "Mama," Poppy said, "can I speak to Papa, please?" "Well, if anyone, just make it brief." Poppy slipped into the boot. "Is he still ill?" she whispered. Sweet Cecilia nodded. "I've never seen him looking so poorly. He lies there whimpering, though every once in a while he'll shake his head and sob. What are we going to do? Or, it's all over with us now." Poppy's heart sank. "Poppy," Sweet Cecilia continued, "I do hope you're going to tell him something that will cheer him up." "I'm not sure I will," Poppy confessed. Her mother sniffed. "Well then, you'd best know what else he keeps saying." "Oh?" "He says, if only Ragweed and Poppy had asked permission." Poppy's heart sank even further. "And I must agree with him," Sweet Cecilia went on. "Well, if you insist on seeing him, come along." Lungwort had curled himself into the absolute toe of the boot, the gloomiest part. His tail was wrapped around his feet. His whiskers were limp, and his front paws were in constant motion, as if squeezing a sponge. Poppy thought his fur had gone grayer, too. Sweet Cecilia leaned over him. "Lungwort, dearest, it's Poppy come to visit." Lungwort shook his head and mumbled as if holding an argument with himself. Poppy came forward. "Papa," she said. Lungwort looked up and stared fixedly at his daughter. "Doomed," he said mournfully. "Who is?" "The whole family. But if rules aren't followed," he began, but stopped to shake his head. "No, it's my fault." "What do you mean?" If I'd raised you properly, you would never have gone to Bannockhill without asking permission, and none of this would have happened. I accept full responsibility." His tail swished in dismay, and he started squeezing his paws again. Poppy appealed to sweet Cecily with a look, but her mother was gazing piteously at Lungwort. "Papa," Poppy said, "I have an idea that there may be another reason why Mr. Oakax refused us." Lungwort sniffed. "You're too young to have ideas." Poppy didn't protest, but pressed on. "I think Mr. Oakax refused permission because of something about Newhouse, something he doesn't want us to know." Lungwort considered his daughter for a moment. Suddenly his whiskers stiffened and he bared his front teeth. "That ragweed," he snarled with anger. "He's twisted your mind. He's the cause of all of this." Poppy stepped back as though struck, but she managed to say, "I'm going to try to find out." "How?" "I'll go to Newhouse." Lungwort turned limp again. "Why tell me?" he said with a shrug. "You don't care what I think. You'll go anyway." Poppy wanted to say something kindly, but the words would not come. Instead, after a painful silence, she turned to go. Suddenly, Lungwort cried, "Poppy?" "Yes, Papa." "Look out for porcupines." Poppy lay upon the floor of her log cabin syrup room and studied a map of the area. As far as she could see, there were 3 ways to reach Newhouse. The easiest would be to go along the tar road. But if she took that route, she'd be traveling in the open. That was reason enough to rule out Tar Road. The longest way would be to go around the marsh, but that meant going over Bannockhill, and it held too many painful memories and fears connected to Ragweed's death. No, Poppy was not ready to go there again. Not yet. Her third choice was Dimwood Forest. Few mice had ventured in, had returned to tell of their experiences. Even so, the dark woods seemed to offer real advantages. She could travel midday, even in bright sun. Mr. Oakax and most other creatures would be asleep then. And when the need arose, the same light would enable her to find a hiding place. If the forest had anything, Poppy assumed, it would have plenty of places to hide. She would go that way. Poppy told Old Basil about her plans. If she succeeded in discovering the real reason for Mr. Oakax's refusal, there would be time enough to let everybody know. On the other hand, if she discovered nothing, who would know or care if she disappeared? She asked Basil to meet her at the back steps of Grey House when the sun was at its highest the next day. That morning she mingled with the family so none would suspect what she was up to. But with so many convinced that she was the cause of the crisis, The hostility made it too painful to wait. Some time before her appointment with Basil, she was pacing by the back steps, ready to go. "I'm leaving right away," Poppy announced as soon as her cousin appeared. "You forgot something," he said. "What?" "This." Basil held out Ragweed's earring. "For courage," he said. Poppy held still while her cousin gently affixed the earring. When she shook her head, it tickled her ear. "I needed nuzzles," she said, caught in a swell of emotion. As they nuzzled, Basil whispered, "I could go with you." Poppy broke away. "It has to just be me," she said, and leaped off the back steps. "Why? If I'm the one who caused this mess," she called, "it has to be me who sorts it out." "Good luck," Basil cried after her. Poppy, not wanting to look back because she thought it might make her lose heart, dashed away. Wow, what an adventure this one's gonna be. And let's go back and look at the map and see what the routes were. There's Tar Road over here going across the bridge. That's where Dad and her went. Here's Gray House up front. New House is way back here. So she could have gone over Bangkok Hill. I can't find Bangkok Hill is over here. Do you see Bangkok Hill? But she has chose to go through Dimwood Forest because she thinks that's going to give her some protection being in the forest. And that's also, though, right in the middle is Okak's nest. So she's going to have to look out for that. So we've got lots of things to think about, lots of predictions to make as to what she will find when she gets to New House, if she gets to New House. So we'll just have to wait and see as we read in the next few days. Bye.